Nick Robinson here for Polygon, and today I'm joined by Daniel McGuffey of Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment, who's going to be showing us a very extended look at the Mad Max game coming later this year. Welcome.
Thank you, Nick.
What are we looking at exactly here? Give us the Cliff's Notes, the elevator pitch on this Mad Max game.
Yeah, okay. Well, so a little bit of context. I'm about 30 hours into the progression so far.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at what is pretty late game content. I'm definitely through more than half of the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to take you through a little bit of everything today. I want to show you a little bit of what it's like to drive around in the Wasteland, what it's like to command the Magnum Opus, the weaponry and physics-based combat available in the open world. And then we're going to take you inside of some enemy camps and show you what it's like to dismantle the perimeter defenses of a camp, as well as do some hand-to-hand combat. So we're going to take a look at a little bit of everything today. For the moment, I am making my way across the Wasteland, and I'll give you a quick look at the map.
Okie doke.
This is the Wasteland. This is where you'll spend your time in Mad Max. And if it looks pretty massive, that's because it is. And if I zoom in a little bit, you can see that all of the objective types that you have in the game are visible here. And there's quite a bit of stuff you can do. These icons indicate optional missions, and the ones that are this color, the one I'm headed to right now, those are the story missions.
Gotcha.
So we're headed to a story right now. Max is trying to get his hands on a V8 engine so that he can get the machine he wants to get out of the Wasteland and cross the plains of silence. And along the way, in order to do that, we've gotten ourselves into a race, the Gastown races, which is where I just left. I just left Gastown, where I learned that in order to participate in the races, I need to have a registered fighter. And you can see that I've got a dude in the back right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's Chumbucket. He's my mechanic. He's also he gives you some exposition throughout the game. He's a comedic foil, and he's Max's ability to upgrade the Magnum Opus. So anytime I want to change the engine, the exhaust, suspension, the armaments, the armor, Chumbucket's my guy.
Gotcha.
But he's not a registered fighter, so I gotta go seek counsel from a fellow named Crowdazzle. And that's where I'm headed right now.
These are excellent names. So I think one thing to talk about right up front is that this is a game from Avalanche Studios, who I think a lot of people probably most fondly remember from Just Cause 2, which is one of my favorite games of the last generation. And that game had a non-insignificant vehicular component to it, but probably I don't think you spent as much time in cars as you do in this. What's like the rough breakdown of time you're spending in a vehicle in Mad Max?
I'd say a lot of that depends on your focus as a player and what you tend to enjoy more. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of car combat and hand-to-hand, and both are necessary to experience the game. There are some optional missions, though, and we actually happen to be looking at the entrance for a death race right now, which are, like I said, optional, but those focus on car combat, those focus on racing, whereas there's some other missions too, like convoy battles. Those occur all throughout the Wasteland. I'll show you some hopefully in this playthrough, and those are opportunities for Max to take out convoy leaders who are accompanied by war parties. Doing that's going to give Max award him hood ornaments that he can collect from the fallen convoy leaders, and those equip different passive abilities like defense, damage buffs. So I guess to answer your question, though, there's well over 100 hours, right? If you play all the content, if you do all the death races, tackle all the enemy encampments, I mean, there's so much combat and so much driving. You're not going to escape either, man. You're going to be doing plenty of both.
So it's funny that you mentioned sort of the completionist angle, because I remember for Just Cause 2, I found myself getting really hooked into the idea of going to every single camp and clearing them all out in that game. What is you mentioned sort of base camps in this game. What's the equivalent of that in this? Like, what if you're trying to clear the map from end to end? What's the primary activity that you're going to be going with?
That's a good question. We're going to take a look at an enemy camp in just a moment. And they're all over the place, and they vary. Some of them have boss characters called top dogs, who actually give you, if you want to change the color of the magnum opus, you're going to have to defeat the top dogs in the Wastelands. They are the guardians of paint. So that's one type of enemy camp you'll face. You'll also face oil pump camps and gas transportation camps. And those all require destroying objectives and taking out various enemy types. And for doing those, though, and for completing a camp and clearing it out, you're going to populate it with allies. And allies are going to provide you with additional bonuses like scrap drop. Scrap is your currency in the game. You get scrap for pretty much everything you do. Every vehicle you destroy, every enemy objective in the environment that you destroy, that's going to drop scrap. And by taking over a camp, you're going to get your hands on periodic scrap drops. There's some scrap right there. It's everywhere. And we'll take a look at the map real quick just to show you some of the camp types. We're going to make our way to, what's the camp we're going to? We're going to a camp somewhere down here. This is the one. We're going to do this one, but these are death races. This is an oil camp. The top dogs are indicated by this icon, and these ones right here are the transfer tank camps. So there's three very different types of camps in addition to stank gum camps, and these are kind of like these camps are kind of like your coliseums. The only objective in those are to defeat all the enemies.
So this game is obviously timed, not exactly, but roughly with the release of Mad Max Fury Road earlier this year, which I actually just rewatched a couple days ago with my roommate who had never seen it. And it's funny looking at that game a second time through the perspective of a game developer. And I'm curious, like, do you have a sense of like how much Avalanche factored in the George Miller movie when producing? I mean, obviously this game's been in development for a lot longer than this year, right? Like it was timed for this game, but I don't know. Was the team aware of Fury Road? Were they collaborating at all with Miller's team, or was it very much like we're going to make a separate story in the Mad Max universe that doesn't necessarily overlap?
Well, in the beginning, I mean, it was really important to collaborate with George Miller and understand, his perspective and understand his role, what's important about creating a Wasteland. But the goal of the game is to create a Mad Max universe all its own, right? To create something that stands alone as Mad Maxian, as a definitive Mad Max experience. So really, collaboration is about defining those tropes, defining what makes an experience Mad Max, what makes a world distinctively Mad Max, and it's about and it's those kind of things that the game is built after, modeled after, those tropes that affect how gameplay unfolds and affected how mechanics were designed. So scrap and resources, of course, they're not plentiful. It's not a game about, when it comes to combat, you'll see this, it's not a game about just shooting everything on the screen. In fact, ammunition is incredibly scarce. And while you do have a shotgun, it's something you want to use very, very carefully and conserve your resources. So those are the kind of things that were taken into consideration when considering what Mad Max is about. It's about making sure that universe comes together and creates an experience that is wholly Mad Max, because Mad Max has been a trope in other entertainment for so long too. Like Mad Maxian has been a way that we've described other games and other movies for so long. So this is about encapsulating all those things and making an experience that is wholly Mad Max from start to finish.
So kind of walk us through what the basics of the combat are. I mean, I've heard it described as almost a car combat game, but then it's also sort of not in a lot of ways based on what you're telling me on like restricted ammo. Like that's not what you think of when you think of car combat. So where does this game fall on that spectrum? And like what are the core tenets, I guess, of Mad Max combat?
Well, so we'll talk about that in two different ways. We'll talk about that as we're experiencing it right now with car combat. The car combat is at its core physics based. So you want to get in there and you want to hit stuff. You want it like that. You want to drive straight into enemies and take their armor apart. You also have a harpoon that's a really vital part of your weaponry. But another weapon that I have is I have the Thunderpoon here. Oh, okay, so it looks like a storm just kicked. This is half the fun of doing of doing live demos in an emergent in an open
Yeah,
world.
I mean, I saw that warning come up, and it kind of, that's one of the major things I was going to mention about this game, is that this is, I mean, like Just Cause, and kind of like Avalanche's forte tends to be, this is an open world game. What sort of like, I mean, I feel like Just Cause, and maybe this game isn't exactly about chaos the same way that game was, but like, the reason that game stood out to a lot of people is because there were a lot of things that would happen that felt unique to you as a player. Was that something that Avalanche went into Mad Max thinking about? Like, was that a priority, or was it more a controlled narrative experience?
I think from my experience as a player and from the time that I've invested in this game, one thing I can say about Avalanche for certain is that they really enjoy. Yeah, look at that!
Yeah.
That dude, I'll get out of the vehicle and I'll be having a fight in a storm, and debris will come, take enemies out or take Max out. There are a couple different types of storms too. This is a sandstorm, but there are also lightning storms, which you can imagine just create a completely different experience visually. But to your question, I think Avalanche really takes pride in the toolkit that they give players, and making sure that toolkit is something that only gets more interesting, and that the player will relish more and more over time. So everything that I have at my disposal, first of all, is upgradable. The harpoon, the thunderpoon, the shotgun, Max himself, all of his combat abilities, all of these skills are upgradable several times, so that the player has a sense of power that continually grows throughout the game. And there's just they do a really good job of letting the player feel like they're growing. They're always continually adding new wrinkles to the abilities that the harpoon or the thunderpoon has. Not just in the amount of damage that they can deal out, but in the types of enemies and types of damage that they can inflict. Yeah, like I said, man, this
ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. I think there was a time when I really focused on like driving like a stunt driver might drive and staying on the road. But to really have fun in this game, you just gotta floor it and just to go flying.
A car just blew up in front of us after flying through the air in the storm.
So what I'm doing, I'm stopping to repair the magnum opus. During a storm, you typically want to seek shelter, because you'll sustain quite a bit of damage if you don't. But I'm in the business of showing you the game, so I'm not trying to hide out right now. But Chum Bucket is wow. See, I just took some more damage. The more you stay in a storm, by the way, the more damaging it becomes potentially. However, there are crates of scrap that are floating about in a storm, so the risk reward is that if I stay out in a storm longer, there's more potential for me to get my hands on giant drops of scrap.
So, this is a super weirdly specific question, but in watching Fury Road recently, something I was really struck by that seemed very Just Cause-ian to me was the amount of vehicle-to-vehicle movement they do in that movie. There's so much like jumping onto another vehicle and taking it over, and that was something that I feel like Just Cause really did a lot of. But my understanding, based on what I'm seeing here, is that Mad Max is very much focused on this one core vehicle, right?
It is very much about your vehicle, the magnum opus, and creating it to your specifications to be a machine that is about inflicting damage or is about being really speedy. You can focus on weaponry, or you can focus on the physics-based combat and creating a machine that's just going to grind other vehicles. You can equip tires and rims that deal damage when enemies get close to you. You can invest more in your flame pipes so that you can use fuel as a resource to take out enemies, and you can also invest in Max and his progression so that fuel is consumed less, or you can invest in his abilities to deal more damage in combat. So it's also more about letting the player find the playstyle that's right for them.
I mean, one cool thing about this too, I think that's interesting is I feel like when I personally play open world games, a recurring problem for me as a player is that vehicles have no value. Like, every car is disposable, you just use it to get from point A to point B and then crash it into a wall and you never think about it again. This game seems to be taking a very different approach where your vehicle is super important to you and is your primary means of combat throughout most of the game. Does that change the way you have to treat your vehicle and build your vehicle? Do you ever have to worry about leaving it behind or taking it for repairs? Like, how like, for example, let's say theoretically you get away from it. Do you have a way to call it to you, or do you have to go find the car every time? Like,
I'm glad you asked. Yeah, check it out. You have a flare gun that you can call Chum Bucket with. Anytime the vehicle is out of sight, as long as you're not in an enemy camp, you'll be able to signal to Chumbug. He's actually in sight right now, so
Right.
I can't signal him over. But we might get a chance to look at that later. There's an enemy convoy. This is what we were talking about a little bit earlier. And I'm actually going to go ahead and participate in one because when in Rome. So the enemy convoy is marked by that piece of UI with the skull, but typically they're guarded by a war party. You're talking about vehicle-to-vehicle movement. You're actually going to see that this war boy is going to board me right now. If I don't take him first. And then I'll use my harpoon on this guy to take him out. Sometimes all you have to do is take a guy's tire off.
Right.
And now he's out of the race.
There's a lot of, I'm noticing, like, controlled use of slow motion in a way to kind of emphasize the physical impact of the cars. You were mentioning that you can also, like, have tires that have spikes coming out of them. So is that one of the fundamental choices you make as a player? Is like, do you want to focus on projectile weaponry versus physics-based weaponry?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say that's certainly some early game kind of decisions you'll have to make. Is, you know, where do you want to invest as a player? How do you want to play the game? As you get towards the end of the story, you'll have likely experienced a little bit of everything.
So I'm noticing some of these lower ranking vehicles have numbers over them. Is that like a level? What does that mean?
So that's the amount of armor that vehicle has.
Gotcha.
I can't actually use the harpoon to dismantle this vehicle just yet because it has so many armored spots on it. So I'll have to grind it down by being very physical with it. We're good. We're good. If Max doesn't get out of the vehicle before that timer ticks down, then he's in trouble. I can also take any vehicle in the game though. So while there is a very strong emphasis on your own vehicle, I can collect all the vehicles in the game and add them to my. Anytime I'm in a stronghold. Oh my god! I got to get out of here. Anytime I'm in a stronghold, I can choose to drive one of those vehicles, and there are different benefits to them to make them unique. Also, the death races that I can participate in. I was at one much earlier when we started looking at the game. You can race in the death races using the vehicles that you find in the world. Some of them are incredibly fast, incredibly spry. Some of them have landmines that they can drop. They have different benefits than Max might have in the Opus. So it's to the player's benefit to experiment and try all the other vehicles out. Plus, there are different rewards bound to completing challenges using those vehicles.
So we're currently engaged in this story mission, but I think something I'd like to see after this, if we have time, is I'd love to see what like your personal favorite type of side content is. If you haven't already played it to death, like what are the things you enjoy doing most besides main story content in this game?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great thing to focus on. So I can. I'm just gonna try to take this guy out by shooting the gas tanks. Come on, come on. What I'm headed towards next, I'm headed towards a top dog camp, and those are kind of like boss characters. They're beefy and more significant, and they're the ones who drop the paint. They drop paint colors when I can defeat them. So that's actually my favorite content. I'm a really big fan of the combat system in this game, and just Avalanche's ability to let the player do a lot by actually having to let the player feel very empowered by doing little. I think they're really good at, for example, I'm driving, tearing ass around the wasteland, doing donuts, leaning out the window, firing a shotgun, firing a harpoon gun at moving vehicles. And it's actually all really fundamentally easy to do. I think you were mentioning something about there's a lot going on, there's a lot happening, and Avalanche does a really good job of making a lot happen with layered controller functionality by attaching a lot of contextually sensitive commands to just a very few buttons. And they're really good at that.
So I guess walk us through kind of the fundamental controls here. Like how do you pull out weapons? Is the slow motion something that's initiated automatically? Like
yeah, anytime I engage with one of the, I know I'm getting blown
it's hard
up
to
a
talk
lot.
and play at the same time, I think, with any game. So
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, the slow motion is used anytime I'm going to try to steal a vehicle and show you a little ground combat. Yeah! Anytime you go into one of the weapons that the Opus has, that'll go into slow motion. So that'll help you target and take a look at the enemies around you without having to forfeit control of the vehicle, without having you go careening off a cliff or a cliffside or something like that. Actually, Max is in trouble.
So I'm noticing there's sort of two separate health systems in a way, right? There's Max's health, which we see in the lower left corner there, and then there's sort of the vehicle health too, which is indicated through the smoke and fire pouring out of it.
Right, and you can also see on the right side of the screen. There's the Opus's HUD, so it has fuel to manage, and fuel is of course through driving, but also from using the flame pipes. That will consume fuel as well. So fuel's a resource you can typically find in an enemy war camp. And you can use it to refuel the Magnum Opus. Alright, we got a little distracted, but I'm going to go try to find that enemy camp.
Alright, cool. I mean, like, some of my favorite moments in past Avalanche games have involved being on my way to one objective, and then having so much happen to me that I forget what I was even doing in the first place. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
some of that good statue toppling tech from the first...
I think that's just a great aspect of open world games, right? Is I'm on my way to do something, but I got distracted doing something else that was really fun for 3 hours or 4 hours.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
This game was developed by the sort of I guess the core of the primary Avalanche team in Sweden, right?
That's right.
And then I guess in New York they're working on Just Cause 3 right now. How long has this game been in development, and do you have any insight into how the decision was made for this to be their next big budget follow-up to Just Cause?
Oh, that's a good question, man. You'd probably have to go way back through to the beginning of development to really understand how those things work. But I know they just really wanted to make a Mad Max game and respect what's so great about Mad Max in this world. So I'm at an enemy camp right now, and you can crawl into the back of the Opus. It's really, the Opus is so much more than your car. It's your mobile fortress. And when it's not billowing smoke, I can look out of the back. You can even drive around in it while Max is in the back. Chum can do some driving and help you get to a strategic vantage point. Max is a really, really tough dude. He's really capable of handling himself, but he can be a little fragile. He's like really powerful, but also pretty fragile. So I think if I were to just head into this war camp right now, I would open myself up to all of these threats. But if you're strategic and you approach from afar, you can eliminate some threats before heading into an enemy camp. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just cleaning out some of the trash before I head into the camp.
And you were saying earlier that ammunition's relatively limited. I'm noticing you've got like maybe 10 bullets left for this with the sniper rifle.
Yeah.
How many, like, do you have more weapons than just that right now? Can you hold a set number of weapons at a time?
Pretty much Max has the sniper rifle. As far as firearms go, Max has the sniper rifle in the Magnum Opus, and he has the shotgun in on foot. Gotcha. And both of those can be upgraded several times. So I've taken out some of the bigger enemies, and I'm going to go ahead and head into the camp. And when you get spotted by camp, it looks like we took out all of the perimeter defenses, but if you don't take out the perimeter defenses in time, they will get buffed. They have a short period of time where they can. Oh no.
It's rough. And one interesting mechanic here that had never occurred to me before is when your vehicle is on the brink of being destroyed, and your buddy here is repairing it for you. It seems like part of what you have to do, because Max is so fragile, is kind of like hide out and use the car as cover so you don't get steamrolled.
Yeah, and what I was trying to do, I think. Now, I of course should probably spend a little of my resources going in and upgrading the Magnum Opus, upgrading its armor, or that will keep happening. We're also being today we are kind of especially being rampaged by these war parties. It doesn't always happen. I can't even get into the car because it's so smoking right now. I have to let it.
It looks like the camp is gradually being alerted to your presence since this unexpected sort of emergent car battle is broken out in front of your mission.
Oh, almost. Okay, I just gotta get in. There's a one more piece of perimeter defense. I think there's another sniper firing at me, but there's also a flamethrower in front. Oh my god, which the war party is just gonna push me right into. You gotta be kidding me, dude.
I mean, to me, this is the most exciting stuff in an open world game. Like, no moment in the past 3 minutes was predictable. It's all sort of stuff that's happened to you. Well, I mean, I guess now would be a good time to talk about the hand-to-hand combat. Like, is it sort of a square to attack, triangle to counter system? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, pretty much. And you've got a roll that's factored in there as well, and you've got a bunch of different abilities that you can upgrade over time by investing scrap into Max. So everything about Max, I don't want to stay still for too long because I know another war party is like right around the corner. Mm-hmm. Or this guy right here. Whew. I got myself. Yeah,
that's awesome.
It happens. Yeah, so like I was saying about, I think Avalanche's ability to put a lot into a very limited controller scheme and not burden the player with doing tremendous amounts of finger acrobatics.
Sure.
You got it. It's square to attack, triangle to parry. Mm-hmm. The closer you nail the parry to its the move being executed, you have a chance to get a perfect parry, which opens up Max's combat for reversals and more devastating strikes. There are finishing attacks that you can chain onto the end of a combo, and you can also take enemies to the ground and do attacks on the ground as well. All right, we've got full health, and we're gonna make another go of this. We're gonna do it right this time. And when I say we, I mean me, because that was all my fault.
So there's this sort of flamethrower thing that's guarding this base camp, and your approach, it seems like to get around it is to just grappling hook the tank that's fueling it and get back.
There's usually, typically, if you look around, there's a couple entrances to a camp as well. So I'm not sure if this camp has a secret entrance, but there's also typically a more stealth enabled entrance for Max.
But your other sort of option is you can kind of brute force your way through this fence by ramming into it over and over, right?
You can ram, you can harpoon it and pull it off its hinges. Typically there's a couple ways to deal with it. But I'm in through brute force.
And this is so much easier without like that enormous war party on your tail.
Yeah. And now we're going to get a real chance to look at hand-to-hand.
Gotcha.
So I see the guy running at me has a weapon. We're going to take it away from him.
What are the controls for that? How do you pick up a weapon?
The X button is a particularly context-sensitive button.
Gotcha.
And holding it will enable Max to pick anything up in the game. And then typically, you saw a different context for it right there, a shiv punisher. Max has a limited number of shivs that he carries in his ammo belt. And you can open up opportunities to use those. And that's an instant kill on an enemy at the forfeit of a piece of rather...
So something that I've noticed, and it's actually a trend that I like, is there's sort of this type of third-person combat that's kind of become de facto Warner Brothers combat, I think, at this point, between Batman and Shadow of Mordor. So when a game like this is in development, is that something that Avalanche comes to you with, saying like, hey, we'd like to adapt this style of combat for our particular style of game, or is it something that comes from the publisher down? Like, what's the structure, I guess, there?
That's a good question, man. And honestly, I haven't worked on the project long enough to have insight into how combat came into the game. Mm-hmm. But certainly a focus was on crowd control, taking on large swarms of enemies at a time, and being able to deal fluidly with large threats.
I'm noticing that you're getting ability pop-ups here that seem to sort of give you buffs on your weaponry. Are those determined by like the upgrade tree?
Yeah, and we'll take a look at those really quick. This is water. Water is again, Max is pretty fragile. He can carry water with him. It's his only replenishable health source that he can carry with him. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, he'll find maggots and dog food throughout the Wasteland, which he can eat, but those are in limited supply, and he can't take them with him.
I like this drummer here.
Yeah, that's the War Crier, and he's going to buff all of the enemy units if I don't take care of him in time. I'll show you real quick Max's legend. Max has he has 100 levels that he can climb through on his way to Road Warrior, and you can see his abilities labeled there in the middle: longevity, metabolism, essence. Those are all things that give passive and active abilities. So things as simple as health or volition, which will give Max additional scrap anytime he picks up scrap. So anytime you're seeing those little notifications, that has to do with how my legend has been affected by the Griffa coins that I've spent. And Griffa coins are the progression currency that I'll pick up in the game for completing certain objectives. And I can spend Griffa coins with Griffa. He's the mystic drifter that Max will find throughout the Wasteland that allows him to level up. I just activated Fury. The longer you can keep a combo going, the quicker you're going to enable the Fury mode, which, as you could guess, gives Max additional damage, wider parry windows, lets him sustain more damage. So we're making our way to my favorite top dog in the game. His name is Rim Jobby.
Okay. Yeah, between Rim Jobby and Scrota, some of the naming in here has been it stands out a bit. Where did the writing side of this game come from? Was that internal at Avalanche?
This game has a brilliant writer. His name is even perfect. His name is Odd. The man who wrote a lot of the dialogue for the game, his name is Odd, and from the way that all the characters speak, especially Chumbucket says some really amazing stuff, and it's all very. He kind of speaks like I don't know, man, almost like a preacher or a pastor. He's very, very eloquent and is incredibly articulate, and everything he speaks about is he relates to angels and the heavens. He calls Max Saint.
Huh. I mean, just based on the little I've seen here today, and coming hot off the heels of watching Fury Road the other day, I feel like this is all incredibly on brand for the universe. This is exactly how I felt like everyone in the movie was speaking, with this weird mix of jargony nonsense slang from this universe and really, like you said, eloquent word choice, or I guess more eloquent than you'd expect for a universe this grimy.
Yeah.
It seems like that's reflected here as well.
Yeah, there is something about it, right? There's something about that juxtaposition of these guys that attach doll heads to the fronts of their vehicles and spikes to everything else, yet they speak in 4-syllable words frequently. There's something about the juxtaposition of it all that makes makes the world a really compelling place. And back to what we were talking about, how do you create the universe? How does Avalanche make this experience? I think they've really nailed what is indicative of the Mad Max experience in the universe. So here's Rim Jobby.
All right.
He's a pretty beefy dude.
This is my place. You're just a raggedy man. You're just dead meat.
I never get tired of the armor and the weaponry in this game. That everybody is just working with the pastiche of cobbled together car parts.
So this is interesting because this is very much a hand-to-hand based mini boss encounter, right? But then there are also equivalents of boss encounters out in the open world when you're in your vehicle, right?
Right. So the convoy leaders, you could call boss encounters. And most of these top dogs are optional, except for this guy. The mission we're on right now is we have to build a specific make of the Magnum Opus. Chumbucket has what he calls Archangels. These are blueprints for holy vehicles, holy configurations of car components to create basically different loadouts, different either if you want to roll in a tank or something that's really spry or something that just has the the most adept weaponry. Those are the Archangels, and you can look to those to really find a playstyle in the Magnum Opus that suits what you like to accomplish. And the way we learn about the Archangels is through this particular mission that tasks us with building one. We're trying to build the Speed Demon, and we want the chrome paint that Rim Jobby has. So we have to beat him to get it. And then if the player wants other customization options for the Magnum Opus, they can take on other. Friendly fire is always on, so when enemies are around,
lure him into the fire.
Yeah, you can lure them into environmental hazards. You can lure them into each other. If there were grunts around, you could bet that Rim Jobby would be knocking them to the floor right now. Oh, gotta play it safe, Max.
And you can drink water as a way to restore health, right?
Yeah, and there's a risk reward to it. It takes time, so you definitely leave yourself open to.
It's a weird point of comparison, but the way that you describe the water health system almost reminds me of something like Dark Souls. Yep.
Yeah.
It's the different directions that Avalanche seems to pull influence from in this game is really fascinating because it's kind of a blend of ideas that I don't think have ever been paired together before.
Well, there's something about, I mean, combat in this game may be fast and frenetic, and there's also like a balance to this game where other things are really deliberate and very well paced and methodical. And what it does, I think, effectively is keep you grounded in a belief that this is a very dangerous world, and you have to tread carefully.
I mean, the idea that it's water too is just like, of course, that's the perfect analog for what a potion would be in the Mad Max world. But also, there's this like really nice symmetry to the fact that he's got a health meter and then a liquid fuel that he has to maintain, and so does his vehicle.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool way of looking at it. I hadn't really thought about that. Yeah, I don't know if there's any direct like influence from Dark Souls, but I gotta say, man, if you're making games in this day and age and you're not influenced by Dark Souls in some way,
yeah, I haven't met a game developer yet who doesn't have strong opinions about what Miyazaki's doing. So
yeah,
makes sense.
And whatever that opinion may be, we've all got them, right?
Right. I mean, one of the cool things about game developers that I've come to learn, like being in this industry for a little while, is like everyone plays each other's stuff and they're all influenced by it and they all love discussing it and breaking it down and learning from it. Alrighty, so when you apply this chrome paint, is that something that Chumbucket kind of does? How immediate is it?
Oh, dude, that's a perfect question, and that's a perfect segue into what we're about to do. You can see that we're populating the camp with allies now. So, like I said, they'll give you periodic drops of scrap. Also, when a storm kicks in, that's where we can seek shelter. Any occupied camp, which you can identify by the check marks, or these strongholds which appear all throughout the map. Mm-hmm. Pink Eye, there's one up here. Any of those strongholds are going to provide you safety from storms. So let's take a quick look at the Magnum Opus. The icons that you see above each of these pieces of UI, that indicates things that we need to upgrade, or in some cases downgrade, in order to build an Archangel. And these are the Archangels. This is the one we're trying to create at this moment. And if you look at the pieces, it'll tell you what you need to get it. Sometimes it's a simple matter of removing something. Sometimes it's a matter of spending. Or there are other prerequisites to accomplish. I have to lower the threat in the territory, for example, to unlock that one. But others should be, that one I have to remove, and this one, that was the color that we just unlocked. And I'll show you real quick. It's instantaneous. So there's no, you don't have to be anywhere. You can go into the garage at any time just by pausing the game and make changes to the vehicle on the fly. So I need this new engine. I'll go ahead and install that engine. You can see that the model changed, and as soon as we go back to the car in game, it's changed.
Here, those big hands.
So we're building the Speed Demon right now, which is as the name indicates, let me make a little Austin Powers turn right here.
Sure, yeah. A 10-point turn.
Yeah. All right, so we're back in the Wasteland, and let's take a look at the garage again real quick, because that's going to inform me of what I need to do next. I need this exhaust, which requires lowering threat. Threat is something that each territory has, and you can get an overview of threat just by going around the map and seeing the different territories. This is Jeet, this is Gut Gash, another great Mad Max name. This is Pink Eye's territory, and Pink Eye is has access to the exhaust that we want. So in order to get the exhaust that we need, her requirement is that we lower threat in her territory. So that's what we're going to take a look at now. Pretty much anything you do in a territory is going to lower threat.
Gotcha.
Anything from taking out an enemy convoy, an enemy camp, taking out installations like scarecrows. Those are the towering monoliths of scrap metal and dead bodies that you might have seen me tearing down earlier. So we're just going to make our way through Pink Eye's territory right now, taking down as many installations as we can to reduce threat. While we're at it, I want to collect the hood ornament that I neglected to collect last time.
Is this from earlier?
Yeah, remember when we had that convoy battle? These were my spoils.
So there's some amount of persistence then to the objects that get dropped in the open world?
Absolutely. And then we'll put this bad boy on.
Cool.
And that'll instantly go on our vehicle.
Do you put it on the front or the back there?
I put this one on the front, but you have one for the front and the back. There's our skull.
Alright.
One of the things that you can get access to as well through completing objectives for the strongholds are cleanup crews. So everything I'm destroying in the open world, taking out enemy vehicles, taking down enemy installations, cleanup crews will come in behind you and get the scrap that you're leaving behind. So it's to the player's benefit to do things for the stronghold leaders. You can't not. You can't.
Right.
You can't see a ramp and not do it.
The fuel tank, it's unprotected.
So we'll spend a few minutes just cleaning up some of the trash in Pink Eye's territory, taking down some of these scarecrows, taking out sniper towers, and then we'll probably go into another camp as well and complete another objective or two. I can do a lot of stuff for this, but I'm just going to drive into it.
Is this one of the scarecrows? There's a human head. I like that it's elevated so you can easily do like a grapple and pull down maneuver in midair.
Yeah, it's really easy to do. I could put the controller in your hand and you could do it first time. So we'll keep doing a couple more of these. These balloons overhead are really interesting. These are fast travel points. What they allow me to do is, anytime I go to the map, any balloon that I get in and ascend up into the sky with, I can then later use as a fast travel point. So I don't always have to drive in the wasteland. I can just zap around from point to point. Oh, dude!
Whoa!
That dude got me.
It could have been worse though. You still landed on the other side of the bridge, so.
Oh, I mean, I have to get this guy back.
Yeah.
Sorry, man. I can't let this guy go.
And the vehicle, I'm looking at the health meter, I can barely see a sliver of green down there in the corner.
Yeah, this guy's gonna get bad.
Is this the grapple?
Yeah, we're gonna grapple this guy. Oh no! Oh, I got greedy. There's a quick repair too, so if Max has the scrap available, he doesn't have to wait for Chum Bucket to take his time repairing. I can upgrade Chum Bucket too, though, so eventually Chum will have his model will get outfitted with all kinds of different gear to help him repair faster. Max changes a lot too. I've got some of the advanced gear that he gets on his wrist and hands. His jacket, his wrists, his hands, his combat abilities, and some of his cosmetics too. You can change the way Max looks. In fact, I'm gonna give him my favorite. I prefer this Max.
Oh, there we go.
There's my Max.
I noticed that this Max doesn't seem to be directly based off of either of the actors who portrayed Max in the past couple decades. Do you have any insight into why they decided to sort of build their own depiction of Max?
I think it's important to establish a Max and a world that's unique to Avalanche, right? So it's great to live in and create this world and create something that is wholly inspired by and representative of Mad Max, but also it was just really important to create something that had freedom, especially for the player, to create a Max that the player identifies with.
I think like one misunderstanding people might have about this game when they first just hear the name is that it's a movie game, and it seems like it's very much not a movie game the way you think of a like licensed product that is a direct retelling of something that they've seen on a movie screen.
Right. Well, I mean, all of the enemies are unique. You know, this game has its own big bad enemy, Scabrous Scrotus. It has its own enemy factions like the Buzzards, who are this really crazy, almost humanoid gang that only come out at night. Mostly coming out at night. Mostly, their vehicles are super spiky. Their eyes glow. They're feral, and they have different types of attacks than other enemies have.
I want to ask real quick. You passed some people who had a water droplet over their head, but you're out of water right now. What was that?
Yeah, those are just wanderers in the Wasteland, and Max can stop by and help them out if he chooses. And the more you do in the world to lower threat and populate the world with ally camps, you're going to see more wanderers. It's going to become a more you're never going to completely get rid of the war boys and the war gangs that control the world, but they're always going to be there to give the game some combat and keep the emergent situations interesting. But you'll see more of the Wasteland wanderers as well.
I guess that kind of leads to another question, which is, what is you mentioned this is more than halfway into the game. What is the post-story game like in this? Is there a new game plus to contend with, or do you just kind of hop back into the world and keep going? Like, how does that break down?
Yeah, there's some unlocks that I'll save for players who get there on their own, but I mean, I think the first time I completed a progression, I had wrapped up something like 25% of the game. And that goes to show you just how much is left in the world to complete. I mean, it's kind of a completionist dream kind of thing, you know.
And in terms of this, because you point out this open world is enormous. How much of that is available from the get-go? Can you always drive to every part of it, or is it sort of unlocked incrementally as the game goes on? Almost.
I mean, it is gated in some ways by terrain. There are certain pieces of terrain that Max will need to. For example, we aren't that far in the game from having crossed the jaw, which is indicated by this gate right here. But we needed to upgrade Max's harpoon pretty significantly before we were able to tear that down in advance. And then after that, it's pretty much open to the player. The only thing that kind of artificially gates the player's experience from exploring the whole world is the intensity of the enemies and the intensity of the combat. It ramps up significantly as Max gets into some of the later later game areas, and if the player just kind of wanders into those areas without being properly equipped for it, he'll experience some significant challenges.
I love that some of the roads, like the one you were on earlier, seem to be almost like drawn out of tire treads, and that like they're covering the thin layer of sand, but then they're constantly being driven on, and so there's like this swirling.
Look, dude, roads in this game are like they're suggestions.
Right.
You don't have to stay on them. There's pretty much no terrain that the Opus can't handle. No, let me take that back. There's no terrain that the Opus can't handle. I'm probably gonna get stuck on some geometry right after saying that.
Right. Well, for the most part, though, it seems like you can either smash or, if not smash, ramp up 95% of the things sticking out of the ground.
Pretty much, man.
I mean, I guess another question I sort of have is about the camera controls in a game like this. A few of the games I've played in the past decade or so that involve shooting from a vehicle, they've sort of devised I guess an autopilot system. So Far Cry 4 had a really interesting one. I think Saints Row 3 just had full-on, you can press the button and it'll automatically accelerate. How much of your, I guess, brain power are you devoting to steering and driving when you're sort of panning the camera around behind you, shooting at guys? Is there an equivalent of that, or is it a very manual driving experience?
I'd say it does a really good job of, kind of like I was saying, you could The game speed slows down significantly enough when you go into aim mode that I'm no longer actually steering the car at this moment. I'm only focusing on my reticle.
Gotcha.
And targeting what I want to target. So it does a really good job of letting you focus on what you want to focus on. The designers know that when I'm trying to aim and fire at an enemy, that's my focus. I'm not focused on driving, so it does a really good job of alleviating some of that pressure for me.
Cool. So it sounds like you personally have played quite a bit of this game.
Oh, yeah.
Are there any, and this is always a tough question when you get asked it on the spot, but are there any like moments that stood out to you as like this type of story you would tell a friend about why this game is incredible? Like what are the sort of specific moments that have happened in this game where you're like, this is one of the best things that's ever happened to me while playing Mad Max?
I think for me, a lot of it comes down to, and I think you'll see some great examples of this, but to me, Avalanche's games seem to like really shine when more is happening, when just tons of stuff is going on, and it's instances like this, like approaching an enemy camp that there's a lot of snipers. Sometimes there's smoke billowing in the background. I'm ramping off of the environment,
Destroying your car.
destroying the car. It's when just like kind of ridiculous things happen, right? Like jumping off a ramp, going into slow motion, firing a harpoon behind me to pull a sniper off a ridge in slow motion while my car is on fire and something is exploding in the background. That's what I love about Avalanche, and I think that's what really that's something they really bring to Mad Max is just excess, right? Like this world of ammunition may be scarce, but action and just totally crazy scenarios are. Those kind of gameplay scenarios abound.
That's a good tagline right there. The action or the ammunition might be scarce, but the action is not. That should be on the back of the box, I feel like.
Yeah, there you go. I'll call marketing after this show. This is a camp I don't know if you can tell by me floundering here, but I'm not terribly familiar with.
You seem scared to stop moving, understandably, I think, with the snipers
a little bit
up there.
Yeah. Somebody at Avalanche is totally not going to be happy that I didn't know where the entrance to this camp is, but that's what I'm looking for. Looking for the entrance. We're gonna find it. This is a Stank Gum camp. Stank Gum is another enemy in the game. One of the big bad guys in the game, and his camp. Oh, okay. So I didn't properly disable the flamethrowers. That's what the problem is. We're gonna use another feature. We're gonna call.
Oh, here we go. Calling the vehicle.
Whoa! Oh, just in
calls.
time. So those flamethrowers have to be disabled. I have to find the tanks that are powering them. Oh, is that one? We can fire it. We can fire it. Trying to get the sniper.
Right, you
Not
gotta
close enough.
Gotta get it lined up this way.
There's one. Probably my first choice of dealing with most threats in this game. Can I harpoon it?
Right. Is it the most efficient way? Maybe not, but it's probably the funniest, and sometimes that's what matters.
Okay. So, now we just gotta find where that fuel tank is. Let's see if we can spot it.
And you
There it
mentioned
is.
nice. So you mentioned you hadn't been to this specific encampment before. Are they all pretty different then? Like, is each one sort of a different mini puzzle to solve in that way?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, sometimes it's a lot more straightforward as far as having. You saw the camp that we went into earlier. There was just a gate that we had to get through.
Right.
This one's a little different. So it looks like we have two points we can go in first of all. But one of the come on,
no.
all of that, and then shot in the back.
I mean, whatever. That's a story, though. You know,
Yeah.
like that's kind of what I know. People love to throw around the term like emergent gameplay or whatever, but I think that's something Avalanche is incredible at. Is like every encounter in Just Cause 2 felt like a story that if I had to write down everything that happened in order,
Yeah.
it would read like this very unique tale of like this weird micro adventure I had in the middle of this greater story.
For sure. Well, and I think, one of the things I wanted to tell you about your question as far as like how are camps different is the wastelands may appear pretty flat unless you're jumping magnum opus off a bridge or a ramp, but on ground there can be a tremendous amount of verticality. There's a whole area of the game that happens underground. It's a submerged airport, submerged in sand dunes, and it's a tremendous area of the game. It occupies this entire area over here. It's called the Underdune. We might get a chance to look at it later, but it's tremendously vertical, and that differs immensely from the other camps in the game that are maybe a little more sprawling. So I think I have done this one, but it's been a while.
I mean, something that was really cool and kind of funny about Just Cause 2 is it had this unbelievably, almost preposterously varied landscape that was like tropical islands and also a mountain, all in the same spot. It seems like something that that the team values a lot is variety, both in the landscape and like in the gameplay.
Well, it has, anything that design has to serve the mechanics, right? So when you have a game like Just Cause or Mad Max that has, again, like such a varied toolkit, really not the best I've ever done in combat.
All right. There could be some input lag. There's 1,000 excuses we could come up with.
That's what it is. It's input lag. Totally input lag.
We need better.
All right, one more time with feeling.
Alrighty.
And again, the objective of these camps is just to take out all the enemies.
The 5 skulls there on the right, is that difficulty?
Yeah.
Okay.
So okay, I know what I'm up against this time. I'm gonna be a little more focused.
Do these colors of war paint on these guys, does it indicate anything about them as combatants, or is it just decorative?
Yeah, those are different. First of all, the colored enemies in the game are all Stankum's minions.
Okay.
So that identifies their faction, but also some of the combat behaviors are dictated by their design. The yellow guy there is more adept at dodging, as you can see. And the other guy, he has some unblockable attacks that I'll have to dodge out of the way for.
Those are sort of indicated with the red pop-up, right?
Uh-huh.
So there's this sort of combo meter in the hand-to-hand combat, and what is that? What purpose does that serve? I guess is there a benefit to doing it all in one big fluid chain?
Yeah, you can see that I've got the little meter with the chain surrounding it next to the combo. That's my fury meter, and sustaining a longer chain is going to fill the fury meter faster.
Gotcha.
And that fury meter, once I get fury active, that's what's going to allow me to deal more damage, move faster, close distance easier.
That's the sort of vignetted power mode we saw earlier, right?
Yeah. That's where I came in. Also, any location that has scrap is going to indicate to you how much you found. So you're never left wondering if you found all of the scrap in a location. So for the completionist, that's a nice little feature. It says that I've got 3 out of 10. There's 10 drops of scrap that I can find in this location alone. And that's going to let me know when I've completely looted the location.
Grab some water for the road.
Oh yeah.
I'm still getting used to Beard Max.
I'm a fan of Beard Max.
So what's next? Where are we headed next? Are we still reducing threats? What's the...
Yeah, we're still reducing threat. We've got to get it down to a 3. It's currently a... I think... What do we have right now? Let's check our... that's objective for just this camp. So if we look at Pink Eye's territory, it's a 5. We got to get it down to a 3. But it's going to be pretty significantly dropped once we clear this camp.
Gotcha. So that's the minute you step out the door, you're officially done with this camp, and it fills with comrades. Is that true in every case?
Right.
Gotcha. I'm interested to see how you get down from up here. I guess
It might be a zip line. Sometimes there's a zip line for Max. I don't have shotgun ammo to deal with Homeboy, the war cry right there.
No.
Oh, no.
So everyone's gonna be kind of juiced up for this fight a little bit?
Maybe.
I noticed a few times in the combat, and it's mostly when you're down on the ground, but you've been able to pull out this. Oh, they're buffed. Oh, they're super buffed. This sort of explosive on a stick thing.
Yeah.
Is that an option in a situation like this, or?
Those are thunder sticks, and if you can find those, they're greatly, greatly preferred. Come on, Max. Oh, yes!
Nice.
So I got the crier.
So
and now,
did he just fall?
Yeah, he just falls. Oh, that gave me Fury mode too, so now I can wail.
Does Fury mode automatically trigger when that meter fills?
It does.
Gotcha.
Oh, here we go. Yeah! Whew. Yeah, dude, that was close. That's what I'm talking about,
Good
though.
thing you got that water.
I know.
I'm gonna say even the animation of drinking the water is a little reminiscent of the Dark Souls potions.
Hey, man, that's okay.
I'm gonna think about that every time from now on.
Cool. Yeah, you can see just from this location as well. I wasn't going out of my way to show some of the verticality, but you can tell that it gets there's some pretty enormous structures for Max to scale.
Occasionally I've seen you knock dudes off ledges. Is that something that you trigger, or does it just happen when you beat them up against a sort of ledge long enough?
Yeah, if you are doing combat against a ledge, and anytime you get close enough to a wall, Max will pin them against a wall, and he has a number of different moves that open up once he's got it. Whoa!
Well, that answers my next question. If you can be attacked while refilling your water.
Yeah, you're never safe. So there's an example of getting an enemy against the wall.
Mm-hmm. Can you double tap X to do a backflip over them, or is that...
Oh, no.
Okay. Is that a airplane wing that's being used as a bridge there?
Yeah, there's like airplane fuselage and shipwrecks all over the place. So we'll just take a quick look inside of here.
Mm-hmm.
It goes really high up, and there's a lot of people to meet in here. But typically, you've always got an ally, sort of a loose ally in the strongholds. And these are the places on the map that, as you uncover the strongholds, even if you're not going around clearing enemy camps and populating them with allies, this is a place where you can get benefits for Max. Cleanup crew. This is the one I was talking about, where if you build it, people, and as long as you do damage in Pink Eye's territory, you'll have a cleanup crew that goes out and collects all the scrap for you. So if you want to spend time in the game investing in finding those pieces, you can go out in the world and get up in one of those balloons, and you can learn where all the pieces in the game world are. So you can build all of the equipment in the strongholds to turn them into something that just really benefits Max.
I saw one of the other ones in there benefited you by collecting scrap when the game is turned off. which is an interesting idea.
That too, yeah.
Are they all pretty different in that regard? Like, do they all sort of have different? Because that's a wildly different effect than like something that just picks up scrap for you as you're driving around the world. Is there a lot of variety in those?
There's also, you can bring scrap back to the strongholds, and that will help them upgrade and make them more fortified. So you can upgrade strongholds. You can also you can collect an oil. You can build an oil deposit so that when you return to the strongholds, you leave with a full tank of gas each time. Pretty much every system in the game, like water as well. You can build water reservoirs so that you can refill your canteen at enemy strongholds.
Are we headed to the Gaslands now? Is that what's off in the distance?
That is Gastown up ahead. We're headed in that direction. And most of the really big set pieces in the game, most of the interesting places are sort of on your vista at all times, so that you can see them in the horizon, almost like you have a compass when you don't have a compass.
Is there a full day-night cycle? It seems like we're hitting evening time in game here.
There is, yeah. There's a full day and night. Dusk, I think, looks particularly amazing. Don't think we can take that one down yet. Let's see where we can go. So that's the Stank Gum camp that we didn't have much luck with. There's another convoy route right there. Let's go ahead and take down another scarecrow. I do have more scrap now, so I can go to the garage and let's take a look at what I can get. I still can't get the exhaust because I haven't lowered thread enough, but I can get these tires. So now I've got the tires I need.
Which improve traction on asphalt by 15%. It's one of the perks of those tires.
Yeah, and then I need suspension. I can almost afford those. So I'm actually really close to finishing the speed demon. And then once I have the speed demon, I can engage in the death race.
So when I see any upgrade system in 2015, I think this is like an instinct that's been instilled in me from like mobile and iOS games. But something I'm immediately curious about is if that's an avenue for downloadable content or microtransactions or anything like that. Is that something you guys are talking about yet for Mad Max? Do you have any announcements in that regard?
Downloadable content or microtransactions?
Either or, yeah.
No microtransactions planned.
It's a relief.
There is some exclusive DLC coming for PlayStation players.
Gotcha.
So the hood ornaments that we were looking at earlier, there's a special pack of those for PlayStation players.
Cool.
So we're at the front of another camp.
Alrighty.
And this is a different type of camp. This particular one is a transfer tank camp. So once I'm inside, I have a bunch of objectives to destroy. Unlike the last one where what I needed to destroy was people.
Right.
This time I just have to destroy fuel. Oh, I see it.
Seems like you can very swiftly kind of hop out of a vehicle.
Just casually roll out, no big deal.
On a whim.
No big deal. Should be a different entrance to this camp. Let's see if I can find it.
Oh, interesting. Alright. This is one of the sort of secret entryways?
Yeah, just options. Different options. And sometimes, I mean, the game is pretty good. The designers have done a really good job of rewarding gamer intuition, finding those nooks and crannies that players are likely to want to go in, and making sure that they are rewarded for being curious players. And that's kind of what you want in an open world game. I gotta take this crier out. See if you can spot his, there it is.
Even once he's activated it, though, it seems like if you take him out, it'll debuff everyone.
That's right.
Another good way to debuff them is to blow them up.
He's got a, you can also find an object in the environment, because he's hoisted by a crane.
Right.
And if you can find that crane, oh dude, really what I'm trying to do is get some gas to light and blow these guys up with.
How are you lighting those gas tanks?
Anytime you have one, you can just press the square button to ignite it. And I don't think it's going to be a great option, so I'm going to have to do this the old-fashioned way. I think the war crier's still up there, so he's kind of just helpless now.
Yep, he's not even drumming anymore.
And yeah, if you get close to him, you can hear him. He's just kind of begging for his life.
Is that? Do you have the option to leave him?
I could, but I don't think I will.
Just throw a gas tank at him.
Oh, missed. So
I do like that there's like dialogue for the situations in which the warboys are eliminated but the crier is still there.
Yeah. So now I'm just going to run around the camp and find all the different transfer tanks. There's quite a few in this camp. I don't think I'm going to find them all right now, but just gives you a sense of... I'm actually going back towards the entrance. Gives you a sense of some of the different objectives. There's some tanks right there.
I still believe that nobody can do explosions like Avalanche. They're the best in the explosion game, hands down.
I would tend to agree with you, especially on the current gen consoles. The explosions look really, really good.
Yeah, there's like this sort of residual tiny pieces of fire that come off of it and land on the ground. It's very beautiful.
The plumes of smoke also, they just kind of they billow off, especially initially. Some of the really dark plumes of smoke look really, really tremendous.
Poor guy.
Okay, we're gonna get him.
Put him out of his misery.
Jib.
There he goes.
So on that note, I think we'll conclude the live session today.
Awesome.
I think.
Well, thank you so much for showing this off. When is Mad Max going to be available to the public?
September 1st.
And what are the platforms?
It's PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.